91.1 FM. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect those of KNY 91.1 FM and its affiliates.
Good morning and God bless you. I'm Orlando Daniels, your host for today's Entrepreneur 91.1 KNOY, your Fusion radio station. And sharing with us on this Wednesday morning is a wonderful young lady. I had the opportunity of meeting her actually out at the Funk Fest that was at the Miller Outdoor Park. And she has a great vision. She has a wonderful heart. Dr. Ann Lundy of Community Music Center of Houston. Tell us about you a little bit.
Okay, well, great. Thanks for having me. I am a Houstonian, and I grew up loving the violin. As a kid, I really loved playing the violin. I like being in orchestra. I especially like being in orchestra with other kids. You know, as a kid, you know, some people like going to sports and da-da-da, but I like being in orchestra.
Okay.
And I think you told me you used to play the cello. Is
Yes,
that right?
ma'am. Yes, I played the cello.
That's right. That's right. So I think a lot of kids, you know, they start in music programs or whatever, and as they get older, their interest kind of goes off into other things. And I kind of understand that, but I was one of those kids that stayed with it. And I find that I love playing the violin, but as a little kid, I find that I loved conducting the orchestra.
Wow.
So that's one of those things. That's kind of an odd thing for a black girl growing up in the South to love conducting orchestra, but I always loved that. I got a chance to do it when I was a little kid.
Okay.
And so as I did it more and more, I remember when I was in high school, my teacher would let me write out little arrangements of pop songs for the orchestra to play in exchange for her letting me get in to conduct the group. And so the more I conducted, the more I loved it. So after I finished my undergrad up at University of Texas up in Austin, that was in music ed, then I decided to get my master's in conducting. And I found that that was just where I wanted to be. I loved conducting. I loved getting other musicians together, the people who are playing the violin and the cello and the bass and the flute and the clarinet and the trumpet and the drums. And I love the mixture of the different sounds. To me, when you put an orchestra together and you have all these mixtures of different kinds of sounds coming at you, and yet it forms this beautiful, I don't know, like a salad or something like that to me. So I really loved, you know, conducting. But as a result of being a music person, a music educator, of course, I've been teaching forever. I'm going to feel old because now I've got kids of kids coming back to me. So, oh, Dr. Lundy, you remember when you taught me? I'm like, oh, my goodness. I know you said this young lady. I'm not so young anymore, but young at heart, as they say.
I agree. I agree. How did you get involved with CMC?
Well, Community Music Center, I kind of ran into one of the founders, this guy named Ron Scales, and it was just kind of like we were both at University of Texas up in Austin at the same time, although our paths didn't cross. And then we just kind of sort of ran into each other one time. He was doing a lot of things over in 3rd Ward at Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church. Okay. And I was visiting Wheeler, and I always thought that, especially with Pastor Lawson, it was a great church, was doing a lot of good things in the community and so forth. And then we started talking. At that point, I had a string quartet, because I grew up playing violin. I switched over to the middle one called the viola. Okay. And I was able to find some other African-American instrumentalists, and so I formed the string quartet. We named ourselves after William Grant Still, so it's the William Grant Still String Quartet. He was, to me, was like, I think of William Grant Still like the Jackie Robinson of you know, the classical world, because he was the first black composer to get a symphony performed by a major orchestra in the 1940s. He was the first black composer to get an opera that he had written performed by a major opera company. So he really opened the doors in the classical world to black composers.
You know, I got a chance to just read up on CMC and the history and the overall mission. And one of the things that I love is, first of all, the actual history of how it came about. Started out in the church, just different things that transpired. But also your primary push and goal is to actually teach today's youth about music. And when we met out at the Miller Outdoor Theater, one of the things that you were actually an advocate of or pushing in relations to, just music, learning, because we don't see string instruments, we don't see actual instruments being utilized anymore. Everything is done digitally, and
unfortunately
we create it all. But this is the origin of it. I heard you mention the violin and the one
viola.
viola. Tell me the difference.
Well, it's kind of like, a choir where they got sopranos and altos and tenors and so forth. The viola is like the alto voice. It looks like a violin, but it's a little bit longer, and it's a little bit deeper, and the range is a little bit lower. So again, it's that mid-range. And one of the reasons why I kind of fell into that was because it became almost a supply and demand situation, because so many people know the violin, not as many people know the viola, and I found that as a violist, there were more people that were interested in my skills. So that's yes, absolutely.
Wow.
It's a simple supply and demand, because they always have a bunch of violins trying out, not as many violas.
I shared with our team this morning the need whenever we talk about business, or we're talking about gifts and talents and things that each of us possess something. We're all contributors. God did not create anybody that didn't have something to offer.
Absolutely.
And so when I hear you talk about the need, being in demand, that's one of the things that we try to do here at the station, is present things that's of a need or of demand, because we're created with other people in mind. And so you have a skill set that you're literally been able to pass on throughout the years. And when you talk about children that you've taught and their children are now coming,
exactly,
that says that you are not only establishing and creating a legacy, but you're leaving one. And so I tell people, your seed determines your harvest, and so you've left a wonderful harvest, or you've created one by the seeds you've sown. I want to give you the opportunity. I don't know, my tech hadn't told me how much time we have, but I want to give you an opportunity to let them hear you play just a little bit. Now, is this a violin or a viola?
I brought my violin.
Okay.
And when I play two short selections for you?
That'll work for me.
Okay. I thought I'd play one brief excerpt from a classical piece and then something else.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Be careful in that chair.
Yeah, I know. Okay, let me check my tuning here. Okay, this is an excerpt of a piece by Johann Sebastian Bach.
Okay.
Okay. Little classical excerpt. And as I said, I'm one of those persons that grew up in the church, so I'm going to play, I hope, a very familiar church song. Hopefully everybody will recognize it.
Oh, you could have kept playing that one. You could have kept playing that one. I think me and Carlos went a whole nother place. Just wonderful, 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 wonderful. When I watch you, maneuver your fingers, and I watch you do the tuning, how do you get each string to create a different sound?
Well, I guess part of this is me doing this so long.
Okay.
After a while, our string instruments, the violin and viola and cello, are tuned in fifths. That means there's 5 notes apart.
Okay.
So let's imagine you're looking at a piano and you got black keys and white keys, and you count the first note. You start at middle C and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You play those 2 notes, they will form what we call a fifth, a perfect fifth. So the violins, violas, and cellos, like our top string on the cello was an A, right? So if we go down 5 notes, then we got a D. And then we go down from 5 notes from there, then we got a G. Go down 5 notes from there, you got a C, So that's how our string instruments are tuned. They're tuned in fifths, except for the bass, which is the 5 and the 4. The big bass is tuned in fourths. So, we're just related in terms of the sound.
Now, you may mention you not being a young lady, but being young at heart. But you start talking about that cello as if I was supposed to remember. I played the cello let me try to remember. Maybe the 5th grade, and I was mannish little boy. And I wanted to be wherever the girls were, that's where you were gonna find me.
All right.
So it was hopscotch. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna definitely play hide and go seek. I'm gonna play kickball. But I got into home ec and the choir and the band. I got into these things because I knew the girls were gonna be there.
I see.
But I'll never forget signing on, getting a part of the band or the orchestra that we had set up at the school, and choosing the cello.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna be all right. But I didn't realize I got to carry that heavy thing home. and actually, whenever we would perform, because I was lazy. I knew my reasoning behind getting involved wasn't right, so I would do just a little practice. And I think my mom was, you got those parents that should tell your kid if encourage them, but be honest with them. Look, that ain't you, baby. That ain't you. The singing ain't you. You just got to be honest. I watch people send their kids on shows and American Idol knowing they should have sent them on there. Because, we have to know our area of grace. And so, when I got into the cello, that just wasn't it for me. But for someone else, and you start naming all these different letters and having to find them, can someone be trained? Because I know we can
Absolutely.
train someone.
Yes.
But how hard is it when you get someone that can actually just play by ear? I've seen people who can just pick up an instrument and play and never been taught.
Absolutely.
How do you polish someone like that?
Well, I'm one of those persons that really believes in early childhood education.
Okay.
And so even though I grew up in a fairly traditional musical environment, I study what they call Suzuki violin, Suzuki viola, and so forth. And so there may be some music teachers out there who know what I'm talking about. But it's a method that believes that early childhood, 3, 4, 5-year-olds, this is where we need to start them. So when we were out at Miller Theater, I don't know if you remember, but I brought a little baby violin along with me and a little tiny keyboard. And I really, really strongly believe in early childhood, because when you are 3, 4, 5 years old, you're just curious, you're energetic, you just want to explore everything. Everything is fun to you when you're that old, so that you don't have these preset notions of, I can't do this or I can't do that. They just want to try things. I saw one little girl playing with the keyboards, and she just wanted to try it. She just wanted to try it because she wanted to try it, So we don't have these. The good thing about little kids is that they don't have these preset, I can't do this, or I'm not talented here, whatever. I believe in early childhood. I really, really do. Now, I take people at any age. Don't get me wrong, because I'm one of those people. I was talking with one lady who was a retired educator, and I was telling her that because our brains, as we get older and so forth, our brain changes and so forth. But if you're doing something new, something fresh, using your brain in different ways, that can really help too. So I'm just one of those persons that I believe music can be at any time in your life, can enrich your life. You don't have to be. I mean, these talent shows on TV, they're okay and so forth, but I don't believe you have to be the very best of everything. You can do music just to do music. You can play an instrument just to play an instrument. You can sing just to sing. You don't have to be the very best of everything. The talent shows and all that, I mean, that's fine, and it's entertaining, but I just think if you can play an instrument, if you can sing and enjoy singing, things like that, there's a church that's going to say, yeah, come on in. There's a band that's going to say, hey, you can play in our community band. There's an orchestra that's going to say, hey, come on in, bring your cello. Be glad to have you, okay? So I'm saying, you don't have to be, you don't have to be super, super, super the best. I mean, you can be a doctor. There's an orchestra made up of doctors over in the Med Center.
Is it really?
Yes. It's called the Doctor or something, right? I forget what it is. But I'm just saying that, especially in my community, the African-American community, I really want us to not just limit ourselves and say, unless you're the very best, you shouldn't even do things. give it a try. To me, music is enriching. It helps our lives. If you're a doctor that plays the violin, if you're a lawyer that plays the cello, if you're a business exec who sings or whatever, these are things that can help your life. And I don't know about your life, but sometimes my life gets crazy.
That's my escape. Music, I love the fact that I'm here, but music is universal. It's universal. And
absolutely.
So I encourage you to keep doing what you're doing. I want to give you the opportunity to let people know how to get in contact with you, though it was up on the screen.
Okay.
Okay, so we can tell them goodbye. Tell them the information that they need.
Okay, well, you can look us up on Community Music Center of Houston. That's cmchouston.org. Because our community music center is a nonprofit. We're taxes in 501c3 and all that, and we definitely accept donations, because part of what we try to do is if we've got kids that want to take lessons and they can't afford it, we try to work with them. So I always ask people, if you're willing to make a donation to help, to help some music student or whatever, we would gratefully take it. We just had our music camp a few weeks ago in June, and as usual, most of the people paid, but there were some people that asked for help, and we took them in.
Well, this is what we want to do. We want to encourage you to come out, connect with Dr. Lundy, CMC Houston. If you have any love or any desire for music, you want to connect. Once again, I am your host, Orlando Daniels, of today's Entrepreneur, 91.1 The Boss. Wednesday. Enjoy. Make it a great week. Be blessed.